hopefully it stays up and we'll be in good shape. So, all right, we're gonna do the actual outdoors one now because I realized that this hour that I've been out already streaming, talking, and everything like that, my mic wasn't working, so you heard none of it. But we're online now. We're out here at a spot that I'm always able to catch stuff at. I've already caught 2 trout and a little creek chub over here, and there's a bunch more creek chubs swimming around right here. So we'll see if we can get one real quick. But we're gonna be doing another outdoor episode here, and specifically this time we're gonna be talking about a topic that got brought up towards the end of Kingdom on the Road last Friday. So we had somebody ask the question about pastor dress code and things like that. And it's a hot button issue in general. Ooh, we almost had one already. It's a denomination dependent one in some cases, but it's an important one to talk about when it comes to we got catfish. Looks like. Oh, nope, he let go. When it comes to dealing with, especially people that are dealing with church hurt and different things like that. So we are going to discuss it today after I figure out if this guy's going to actually bite or not. Want that. He has ripped that worm to shreds already. It's a big guy, whatever it is. See if I can follow him into his lair here. So where I'm at is a little part of a decent sized creek in the middle of a park, and there's a very rocky area right here where you've got catfish, you got trout, you got bluegill, you got all sorts of stuff that like to hide in these rocks. And so if you just stand here and lightly place the bait right in the crevice of the rocks, you can get fish without even trying. See if anything comes after it real quick. So anyway, the question that was brought up was about a guy whose wife grew up Catholic. He did not, and went to a Protestant church. And the wife was a little caught off guard by the fact that the pastor was not in a collar and was kind of dressed what was described as normal. And the question was, is that okay? So here's the thing, first of all, with the collar issue. The collar is very denomination specific. So it's meant to mark out a priest, mark out a spiritual leader as somebody that can be trusted, as somebody like, hey, they're marked by God type of thing. It is very much, like I said, denomination specific if you are going to have a collar or not. It does not mean there's no real spiritual significance to the collar other than the idea of a physical mark of the calling that the person has. So it's just supposed to be an easy way of identifying people. So that alone is enough reason to say, it's okay if you have a pastor that's not in a collar, because the collar doesn't carry any kind of spiritual significance outside of acknowledging the call that they have. Now, the other parts of it, though, is where we need to actually start talking, is this idea of, well, what about the idea of the pastor being dressed normal? So we're not talking suit and tie. We're talking jeans, t-shirt, hoodie, kind of like I'm dressed at the moment. Is that a problem? Is it not? So here's the thing with it, is that the first answer is obviously no. There's nothing wrong with it, simply because of the fact that, the whole idea that we see in John 4 is that God calls us to worship in spirit and truth, not based off of anything outdoors or outdoors. That's where I am, on the outside. What up, Gio? I see you out there. You missed it this morning. I've already caught a couple trout and everything else, and now I'm trying to catch some more. But anyway, we we got into this discussion a little bit at the end of King of the Road, like I said, because Joe and I definitely are not ones that anybody would think pastor just looking on the outside. We wear hoodies, we're athletes. We don't, we are not ones that people are going to stereotypically look. It's like, oh yeah, there's a pastor right there. The outward appearance is not something that matters in terms of things outside of a couple of other key pieces and issues that we're going to get into as we go, because there is another layer to the dress code discussion that often doesn't get talked about. Actually, there's a couple layers that don't get talked about, and so we're going to talk about them now, because why not? So, like we said, John 4 is where we get the fact that the dress code is not that big of a deal, because it's not about outward appearance, it's about spirit, it's about truth, it's about the heart of worship, all that kind of stuff. The unfortunate thing is that we do have certain denominations within the U.S., not even just the U.S., in the West, that will say that if you don't have a tie on, for instance, you're not supposed to be preaching. That a suit and tie is a mark of, I don't even know what the mark would be, righteousness, holiness type of thing. And that if you're not willing to dress that way when you preach, then you obviously are not worthy of actually preaching, because it shows you don't care about God and yada, 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 yada. The problem with that, though, is that they're neglecting the fact that in today's world, most people are not walking around suit and tie. Most people are walking around in jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, everything else. So the idea that it's a sign of disrespect is very much a cultural thing that is pretty much gone within the rest of society. The rest of society is not worried about if you're in a suit and tie all the time or not, unless you're in a business setting or something like that. Your dress does not show how much you care about God. What shows how much you care about God is the things that we've talked about all the time. So what Jesus says shows that we love God is how we love other people. So it's, oh, we got one. Little creek chub. Don't know if you can see it or not. Little creek chub there. Woo! He's excited too. What shows how much you actually care about God, how much you love God, is all in the in how you act, how you treat each other, how much you love one another. That's how we're identified as disciples. That's how we're identified in the fact that we love God, is in how much we love one another. The dress does not matter, but where it does matter is in a couple other areas, and it matters in terms of why I argue that realistically, I never preach in a tie or a suit or anything outside of that. The only time I have worn in a pastoral role, worn a tie, worn a suit, jacket, anything like that, was when I have had to do a funeral. That's the only time, and even one of the funerals, I think they asked me not to wear a tie or anything like that during the funeral. The reason I don't is due to the fact that, one, I'm not comfortable in it, and so I'm not going to be able to preach well if I'm not comfortable. But on top of that, a lot of the people that I have dealt with in church settings are ones that have been hurt by the man in the suit and the tie. They're ones that are not welcome. At least they don't feel welcome because they themselves can't dress that way. They don't have the money. They don't have the ability. They don't have the know-how. They aren't able to dress that way. And so because of that, they feel like other people are judging them for not dressing that way. And so if I, as the pastor, am dressed sometimes even more casually than them, it takes some of the edge off. So there's a ministry purpose to why I don't. But the other side of it is in the fact that we actually should have the discussion surrounding the suit and tie and everything like that for preaching around the idea of what the actual biblical understanding of modesty is. Because part of the argument that I have heard a lot about why women should be in dresses, why women shouldn't wear pants, why men are supposed to be, well, all the dress code ideas behind the holiness codes and all of that is due to this idea of, well, we're called to be modest and everything like that. Modesty has nothing to do with your clothes and everything to do with how you are presenting yourself from a spiritual and a physical attitude, I guess is a better word for it. It's an attitude. Modesty within scripture normally is dealing with rich clothing, rich hairstyles, rich lifestyles, the owning of property, the owning of slaves, the owning of all these different things was what was always actually dealt with when there were objections and instructions on how you should live modestly, is getting rid of those sort of things, which is the irony behind those today that go about trying to tell you that in order to be holy, you have to dress a certain way and all this sort of stuff, is that the stuff they're talking about is in reality the opposite of what they think they're actually saying, because it is not cheap to be able to afford a suit and tie. It's not cheap to be able to afford multiple of them to be able to wear throughout the year, especially those of us that live in climates like I'm in Ohio. Like today, right now it's getting close to 70 degrees. It's supposed to get up to 80 later. Yesterday it was about this way as well. Last week it was only 40 degrees. Those of you that were watching the stream last week, I was, dressed kind of like this, but it did not get much warmer than it is right now. It's a little hard to be able to have enough clothing to suit the climate and to suit everything else with the price of these things that people are saying you're supposed to have as a pastor. What that means is that we should not be encouraging that kind of dress code coming out of our pulpits, when the whole point is that we're supposed to be living a lifestyle that is not showing off our wealth and showing off our how well off we are or anything else. That's the part that never gets talked about when we deal with this idea of how we should dress for Sunday, and especially those of us in ministry, how we're supposed to dress in the pulpit and all that kind of stuff. Now, the other stuff that we need to talk about related to all of this is the actual history behind this idea of Sunday best. Because again, there's some cultural things that we have to take into account, because the first part of this that people don't realize, and we'll get into the reason why people argue that I'm wrong here, even though I've got receipts that I can't show on this air, but I've got it. If you go follow me on Twitter when we have these conversations, you'll be able to see the receipts. The idea of Sunday best actually comes out of slaveholder theology, Jim Crow. Because when, even in the North, you had churches that were technically not supposed to be segregated, you still had segregated churches. Because the idea was, before you could enter into our building, you had to be dressed a certain way. And so if you were not capable of affording the proper dress to enter our building, you were not coming in. And so it was a way both of racial and financial segregation within the church early on. It's also part of the reason why within most African American churches you have the opposite sort of thing. The reason they call for Sunday best is to show the fact that look how far we have come, look at what God has done for our people. It's the opposite of what we have within most white churches as far as the idea of Sunday best. Now, people will argue that I'm making all of this up, but if you actually go and look at the etymology of the phrase Sunday best in relation to clothing, it does not show up until about 1820, 1840, and then again in 1860. What's going on during all that time? This is the heart of Civil War, abolition, desegregation, everything else. Now, what we know that comes out of it after the Civil War is we have Jim Crow, and so we again have the same sort of thing happening where dress code was a way to continue to promote this segregated status quo within the country as far as how it relates to our churches. Again, people argued that I'm making all of this up. I've got the receipts over on Twitter. I don't have them here because, it's a little hard with a fishing pole in my hand to pull those things up. But if you go search the phrase, search the terms, all that kind of stuff, you'll see the same dates that I just talked about. You also will be able to find the fact that most of still the idea of Sunday best was also during the same time period that we're dealing with, where suits and ties were the normal, the regular, everybody was wearing them. So the idea of it being the Sunday best suit was because of the fact that it was just better than the ones that you wore normally. So even when we get into that, if you want to deny the racial stuff, the financial stuff, you're still dealing with the fact that culturally, at the time, it was somewhat casual dress because it was the dress that everybody was wearing day to day, everything else. It was just a little bit of a cleaner cut one, a little bit better looking one, everything like that. So all that to say, the dress code stuff is, it's very annoying for me, because me as somebody that doesn't like to wear that kind of stuff anyway, having to constantly hear people claim that stuff that I was preaching would have been accepted if I had been in a tie, if I had been in a suit, as opposed to coming in jeans. I had a church that threw a fit about the fact that I wore sandals in the middle of summer in a church that didn't have air conditioning. So there's a little bit of a personal reason why this is a little bit of a hot button issue for me, but there's also the fact that I know unfortunately the level of hurt that these kind of conversations can have on people, especially when they are not handled well, and they come from a place of not even understanding why people might have a problem with it. So hopefully that was at least somewhat educational, helpful, all that kind of stuff. Gio, I agree with you, but you put it much nicer than I do. Well, that's because at the moment I'm out here doing this instead of having to actually address people. Uh, I it it can be very, very like I said, one of the things. So one of the jobs I had at one point here, not that long ago, was teaching about healthy relationships. Specifically to kids, we were doing it for domestic violence prevention education. And one of the things that we talk about in that is this idea of, do you know what your hot button issues are and how you would respond to people when you're in those kind of situations? Like I said, this is one of those areas where, unfortunately, when it's a face-to-face discussion rather than this sort of setting where it's more of just kind of like we're talking, we're teaching, all those sort of things, I'm not quite as I'm a little bit more direct, a little bit more direct, a little bit louder. Not yelling, because this is not a thing that needs yelling, but I'm much more direct. I'm much more. Do you not see what you are doing here? Do you not see the people that you're hurting here? Because again, in those situations, I'm gonna have to switch back to the worms because these guys over here don't want the shrimp. The In those situations where I actually have the people in front of me, it's much harder for me to stay calm and collected and not be as very much like direct. You need to look at what you're doing here when I have the people hurting in front of me. Because at that point, my responsibility is much more to them that are hurting than it is to the person that is causing the hurt. Um, it's a weird fine line dynamic you have to figure out and walk. It's one that we all have to figure out and walk, but that's part of what we taught the kids in that program is this idea of the fact that this is why you need to know what your hot button issues are. Because if you don't know what they are and you then get faced with them, then that's when it becomes much harder to continue to do things the way Christ has asked. Now, I would say this is another one of those areas also, not the dress code part, but the how to stay calm part of it. The why we need to have a good understanding of what rebuke actually looks like biblically, because rebuke typically is one that is done more so for the sake of both the person that needs it, but it's also for the people that need to hear the fact that they're being defended. Correction is what happens in private. Rebuke is something that happens typically normally in a public setting, and that's not necessarily how we think about it. We think of correction and rebuke kind of in the same thing, but if it's a private conversation, we just need to correct. We don't, there's no need to get angry. There's no need for rebuke. But when you are in a setting where somebody's hurting somebody, there's harm happening. We need to be much more direct. We need to be a little bit more forceful in what we are saying, because it's not just about the person getting it right. It's about making sure that no more harm is going to be done. It's about protection of those that are vulnerable. It's about doing what Christ has asked us to do in relation to those that are being oppressed or those that are being persecuted, or all those sort of things. So yeah, it's a fine line to walk, and it can get a little chaotic at times, but it's also one of those things where if you actually are doing what the Spirit, doing what Christ has said, and as far as living with a renewed mind and allowing the Spirit to change your perspective on stuff, it eventually comes along. Trying to keep up with the chat here. Oops. Oh, I lost it. Where'd it go? There it goes. Yeah, for some reason my chat is not showing up the way it's supposed to, but I'm trying to keep up with you, Gio. That's part of why I made you my moderator over on Twitch, is because I can't keep track when I'm out here all the time. Which, speaking of, those of you that are on Twitch, if you want to mess around with the chat for a while, we did add some commands. I think if you want to find information about the prayer, the prayer portal, I believe it's !prayer. If you're wanting to find more information about the KFM stuff, it's !KFM. If you're wanting to find out about Kingdom on the Road, which is happening tomorrow, even though I probably won't make it myself, but it will still be aired on everything still. You can do !KOTR. If you're looking for the Misfits website, I believe it's !web. Yeah, there's a couple others on there. I don't remember what all of them are. I set them all up and I don't remember what they are. But shout out to Pastor TC. Helped me finally get everything set up over the weekend. And we tried to get the capture card working. I was trying to play Portal a little bit yesterday, but we think it's my internet is the issue, because I was glitching out a lot. So it was not a very good playthrough. So we'll try it again another day when I've reset the internet at the house. And the sun is starting to pick up. I'm going to have to take the sweatshirt off here in a minute. It's getting a little toasty out here. See if we can get this big guy down here first, though. So fishing-wise, for those that, because I didn't know my mic wasn't working when I was talking about all this earlier, we're at this little creek area here in one of the local parks that has a ton of just rock cover, and all you gotta do is just put the bait down there, and they come out of the crevices all the time looking for a meal. Um, and so I mean, it doesn't take much to catch fish over here once they're over here. Which that was the issue the past couple times. It was still a little bit too early to be able to catch anything. But now that it's actually warm and it's actually consistently warm, they've started to move back in over here. So that's this morning. On the first stream that's just on Twitch, that you can't hear anything, but you can see the stuff at least. I was able to get a couple trout and a couple trout and a creek chub, and then I got another creek chub here on this part of the stream as well. So let's see here. I'm gonna get this sweatshirt off real quick because it is getting toasty out. So speaking of, if you have not, so this, when we got this background, that means that we are on Twitter and YouTube and Twitch doing these, which are much more ones that we may use for actual recorded episodes occasionally, things like that, and that are a little bit more direct. So if you have something you want us to talk about, just let us know in the chat and we'll do that. We're going to actually have a regular schedule for this here in the coming month or so, once the kids are out of school and we've got a more consistent schedule with the babysitter and stuff like that. We'll be planning that out. But in the meantime, we are going to be out here probably about once a week when it's nice out. Today it's super nice out, so we're going to be out here most of the day until I have to pick up my daughter. But like I said, this one is on Twitch, Twitter, and on YouTube. But if you go follow our Twitch account, you'll be able to get some exclusive ones as well. We're also starting to try to get up our the capture cards so that we can start streaming some gaming and stuff on weeks that it's rainy. So that way we're still able to do everything. Things like that. I may be on tonight. No, not tonight. I may be on tomorrow, but I don't think so for Kingdom on the Road. Is the other thing that nope, he let go, whatever it was. Let's stick back down there and see. This is where I caught those trout earlier this morning. But all I have to say, if you're on Twitch, make sure you give us a follow so that way you can stay updated, because we're entering a season where we're going to be able to start streaming more consistently. That's on Fridays. We are going to still have Kingdom on the Road. I believe it's still going to be Thursday for the most part, is when we're going to be doing the outdoor live streams. And then occasionally when I've got time, we're going to also try to stream some gaming stuff as well, assuming that I can get the internet working in the house better so that we can actually do it. So we're going to see if we can get anything to chase the shrimp over here. Oh, yep. Oh, he let go. So this is one of the easiest places to catch because I can actually see them, but they're a little bit picky, and so you gotta just get the right one and guess the right crevice. if you go back and watch the morning stream, minus the fact that I have no sound, we did also find a nice little family of turtles. When I was over at the other side of the park. Come on. They're acting like they want it, it's just they're not swallowing. So may have to go back to worms here in a minute. Unless these are those sucker fish that are down there. So it's weird because there's a couple like sucker fish down at the bottom of this little clearing area, and they are very, very picky about what they want. Everybody else over here just grabs and grabs and grabs. But, let's see. Just keeping an eye on the chat here. And then, yeah, the nice thing today also is that now that it's warmer out, places are finally some bait. So I was actually able to get good worms this time instead of those ones I had last week that were all dried out and dead already when I bought them. So hopefully we're going to actually have successful streams here moving forward. Almost had one. Sure if he took the worm off or not. It's hard to tell. I got most of it, not all of it, but most of it. Not enough that they're gonna be able to get anything. See what we got here. Go back over here for a minute. Check it out. These must be those sucker fish, because I literally just hit one in the head with it and he didn't want it, so that explains why I'm not getting anything over there. So we may move over to the main pond here soon, just to see. We'll hang out over here for a little bit longer. Ooh, we got something. Oh, he took it into a rock. He got stuck. Oh, they stole my worm. No, looks like we Knocked the camera over a little bit, didn't we? My bad. So I gotta figure out if I've got a better way of doing the camera placement or not, because it seems like I'm getting the thing I have is becoming less and less reliable. We'll just sit right here for a second. See what's down here. If there's any fish in the rocks over here. There anything over there? Huh. Well, maybe we're gonna go across the bridge here in a little bit. We have reports of across the spillway over there that there are a few bluegill. So maybe we'll move over there here in a minute. I'm gonna see if I can get this guy over here to latch on first. He's playing with it a lot. Alright, so I think that's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna walk over to the other side and just see if there's anything over there. And then if not, we will probably call it good for this round. I'll be back on Twitch at some point today. I gotta plug this phone in anyway. So let's get this stuff packed up real quick. We're gonna go for a little walk, see if there's anything on the other side over there, and then see what happens. Alright guys, we're gonna go for a little walk here. Again, don't forget tomorrow, everywhere you're watching right now, is Kingdom on the Road. I will not be on the panel tomorrow. I've got an eye appointment and some other work I've got to do. But you will be able to still catch Ant and Joe and anybody else that decides to join. Tomorrow we'll be back in the book of Judges. Or no, not Judges. Yeah, Judges. We're back in the book of Judges on chapter 5. Looking at the Psalm of Deborah and Barak. And then seeing how far we get. Because you know us, we never know how far we're actually going to get. So let's see here. Fortunately, the bridge is a bit of a walk, and it's a bit of a walk back, so we're looking to see if there's anything in the creek as we go. I said this morning when we went for our walk, we found some big colony of turtles all lined up on a log. I'm losing my bat. Oh my, there's a goose nest right there I did not see. That could have been bad. So hopefully this walk is worth it. I don't know if it is or not. We're going to find out. Oh, my rod broke. Hang on. I have to hold it in a different spot. So yeah, let us know if there's any other topic type stuff you want us to cover, want us to hit at any point. That's why we're doing these. Besides the fact that I already plan on being out in the summer when it's nice out and I have the opportunity. It also is a good opportunity to do these kind of discussions and talks and stuff in a way that's a little bit different than your normal Bible study settings, even the normal Kingdom on the Road stuff where we're in more of a Let's see if there's anything here at the spillway real quick. Occasionally, ooh, yeah. We got some guys over here. We'll throw in here once we check out that other spot, because there's definitely a couple bigger guys in there. So we'll see how well I can do this year. Last year, for 2024, on New Year's Eve, I caught fish 100 for the year. So we'll see. Okay, and I didn't get started last year until May, end of May, early June, actually. So we're getting an earlier start. So hopefully we'll be able to hit that mark. Ooh, that's a huge bee. Almost back to where we started, realistically, just across the creek. See if there's anything worth actually coming over here for or not. We're about to find out, I guess. Bye. Alright, we are over on the other side now. So that over there is where we just were at. I don't know if you can see it or not, but that little, right there where the rocks dip down under the water is where we just were. And so now we're gonna see what those kids were talking about. Well, there's a scooter in the water. There is nothing over here. Don't know what they were talking about. Well, that was a waste of a walk, but you know. We'll go back over by the spillway for a little bit before we head out. And then, like I said, there's a possibility, we don't know for sure, there's a possibility that later this afternoon, I may make it over to one of the actual lakes before I have to pick my daughter up from school. And so we may be going live again over on Twitch over there. So yeah, there's just some little tiny baby fish in here. Nothing that even would fit on the hook. Let's head on back to it for a minute. Ambulances are going by. already. So yeah, we'll see that first 20 minutes, half hour or so. We may release as a Misfits episode. We'll see, because it was a conversation we've been wanting to have and hadn't had an opportunity, and now we've got it. So if you were not part of the live recording yesterday, we also announced we are working on getting the website updated, make it a little bit easier for people to navigate and find some stuff on. It already is way better than it used to be, but we're hoping to get it even better now than it was before, a little bit more organized, a little bit more searchable than it is at the moment. The only real big change to it is going to be the fact that we are probably removing the store off the website, because it's going to save us some money that way. The store will still exist, it'll just be an external link. Yeah, MinistureMisfits.com, all that good stuff. And then wherever you're watching at the moment, be sure you're subscribed, followed, whatever it might be, depending on what you're watching on. Again, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern is Kingdom on the Road. Joe and Ant are going to be walking through Judges 5. And then we're hoping that next Wednesday, again, we'll be doing another live recording. We think it'll be with Jake Dobrins, looking at what idolatry actually is, because it's been a topic that has come up quite a bit on just about all of our channels recently, is people questioning whether or not something is actually idolatry or not. So we're going to look at that, talk about it, about why we don't want to acknowledge that some stuff is idolatrous, why we have a problem with admitting that, beyond the just obvious that we don't like to admit when things are bad. So we'll see if we can get a bluegill or something really quick, and then probably call it morning. And then I will be back on at some point this afternoon, hopefully, over on just the Twitch channel. See if there's anything still over here. Oh, no, that's a turtle, not a fish. Little box turtle. You don't want to get that on the line. So we're going to actually, real quick, go back up where we started this morning, since we're already almost there. Which, those of you that were not on the early stream have no idea what I'm talking about. There's a spot up here that is where the creek runoff is. And there were some big bass that you could just see. They were floating near the top, but just couldn't get them to latch on. So we'll just see what's going on over here real quick, and then go. For those that want to know where I'm at, I don't know if you can see it. Actually, here, we'll do it this way. How do I switch the camera on this? See if that works. Yeah. So this is where we're at. That right there is the McKinley Monument. It's the resting place of President William McKinley. So if you want to know where I'm at, you can figure it out based off of the fact that right there is McKinley Monument and the McKinley Museum's over there. So yeah, if you were wondering, that's where we're at. On the other side is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Oh, there's a little baby turtle sunbathing. Now that I know how to switch the camera around. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a little tiny turtle right there on the rock. Yeah, there's a bunch of bluegill right here. We'll see what we can do for a little bit over here, and then call it good for now. So, should be able to see there. Right across the water, something just jumped out. Oh, my cooler's attacking me. Doing all the short casting, now it won't go out. There it goes. Oh, heads up. I had it and shot it out. It took the worm completely. There's something out there. See if he comes back. Oh, there's a turtle coming from it. For it. Okay. A lot of turtles out here today, at least. So again, like we said, let us know what you guys want us to talk about in the future. All that good stuff. That way we know what we should cover while we're out here doing this kind of stuff. It's too bad I didn't have those fancy glasses that actually you guys could see what I was looking at, because you'd be able to see all these turtles swimming around. A bunch of little bluegill right here. What's going on? Yep.
Any action here?
I caught a couple trout down there.
Oh, here. They have that stop?
Yeah, well, this was in the creek, not even the lake. I've got something on. Well, I had something on the line a second ago there. But yeah, in the creek over there, there were two of them.
Really?
Yeah. Within about 15 minutes of each other.
Yeah, you can tell this gets deep from here.
Yeah.
It's real shallow.
I didn't even realize this part back here was here until I was walking back here the one day, and that's I know you've got stuff swimming. You can see them swimming out here, but
It sure looks like a good spot.
yeah, my battery's about to die, guys, so we'll be shutting down here in a little bit. I think my reel's getting tired. It's not letting me cast anymore. Oh, what happened? Oh, we don't have a shrimp or a worm anymore. All right, well, we'll throw a shrimp on just to see what happens, and then call it good for this round. And like I said, I'll be back on Twitch probably this afternoon at some point. I'm gonna, after I charge my phone up, see about going up to a couple of the actual lakes that are over by where my daughter's school is at. So see if we can't get any more action today. So again, don't forget Kingdom on the Road tomorrow. Tuesday, for those that did not see the live stream yesterday, will be our episode with Anthony Wilson Jr. So Ant from Keenan on the Road, his son, who is a pro arena football player. He and I talked about athletics in the local church, specifically athletes in the local church, as well as some other related things to ministry and athletics and football and things like that. So that's on Tuesday on the regular Misfits channels. And then, like I said, hopefully on Wednesday we're going to be doing another live recording with Jake Dobrins, dealing with idolatry specifically and definitions of it, what it actually is, and why we don't talk about it well. Even though for the most part we all probably can figure out why we don't talk about idolatry well, is we don't like to talk about idolatry, because then we have to do something about it. But we're going to deal with all of that next week. There's some action over here right by where I threw the shrimp in, but I don't know if I'm going to get anything to bite. I'll have to see. Oh, now it's starting to cast out. Alright guys, so I'm going to start packing everything up here while we let this sit. And then, like I said, we should be back online, at least over on Twitch here this afternoon. To try out a couple other areas that I haven't gotten to yet. That normally are pretty good, pretty easy to catch some stuff, some bigger stuff even. So hopefully also I'll actually be able to pull the clips of those trout I caught earlier. There's something right there. See if anything goes after that. Alright guys, I'm going to be heading out. Again, check out tomorrow, Kingdom on the Road, 10 a.m. Eastern, wherever you're watching at the moment. And then those of you that are Twitch guys, I'll be back on this afternoon, hopefully. Those of you that are not, you can check out that stuff. Make sure you go check out the website, ministermisfits.com. Also kfmbroadcasting.com. And then if you've got a prayer request, make sure you check out our prayer portal over on the KFM site. So that's kfmbroadcasting.com/prayer. There is something very big out here. Just can't decide if it wants the shrimp or not. All right, one more cast and we're gonna shut this one down. So I can go charge the phone before this afternoon. That was a horrible one to end on, but that's all right. All right, we're gonna call it good. Oh, I just hit a fish. Literally just hit a fish in the face with it. See if I can get. It's a little bluegill. Oh, sees it now. He's thinking about it. Oh, he ran the other way. All right. All right. We will catch some of you guys later. The rest of you guys hopefully will tune in tomorrow for Kingdom on the Road with Joe and Ant. And we will talk to you when we see you.